Howdy, Banjo Ben here with Mr. Jake Stogdill. We're out here at Banjo Ben's General Store, and I want to give you guitar buyers top 5 things that you need to know when purchasing an instrument. Jake, buying a guitar, and especially buying a guitar online, can be a scary thing for folks. What's the first thing that we do to every guitar before we ship it out the door?
Well, first thing, we take it out and inspect just the overall condition. You know, things like, are there any cracks? Does the finish look good? There's no unreasonable warpage. Is the bridge flush to the top like it should be? You know, we check and make sure that the neck isn't separating right here in this area. Just all those structural things. And then, you know, during that process, we'll also check and make sure it has good strings on it before we move on from there.
Lots of things can happen from the shipping of the manufacturer to the store, so that's why we're doing this.
So the next thing we would check, the tuning machines. That's obviously a very important component. We make sure none of the screws are stripped out or anything like that. Sometimes at the factory they can run them in a little too hard and strip out the wood. Also the function of the machines themselves. Do they hold tune? There's no slipping in the gears, etc. And you know, just make sure we got a good set of functional tuners on there.
And they may vary according to the price of the instrument, right?
They absolutely do. Yeah, like you know, if you bought a $3,000 instrument, the tuning machines would maybe be palpably smoother than what they would be on a $300 instrument. But you know, there's a certain reasonable expectation for what you're paying for.
Awesome.
They should work. That's the bottom line.
Number 3, Jake, we have the nut and the nut slots.
Yeah, so this is a critically important area of setup as far as the guitar feeling like it plays well, and also not stretching the strings out of tune, especially if you're playing in the lower position. So obviously first we'll check the overall condition of the nut. It's not broken, it's not slivered off anywhere. The string spacing, make sure that's reasonably spaced and so on. But then where we go the extra mile is we make sure these slots are oriented properly. They should have a slight slant like this to them, and the proper height.
Yeah,
and that eliminates all those playability issues and intonation issues.
Number 4 is the neck, and there's a lot of things that go into that, right?
Yeah, there's several points to the neck. So, you know, obviously first we'll do like a sight test. Look down it like so. Make sure it has the proper amount of relief and a reasonable amount of straightness. You know, sometimes, more so on lower end guitars, you can get a wicked twist to the neck, in which case we personally reject it and send it back and get a better example. But you know, we'll check the neck relief. So what goes into that is you'll have the truss rod, which will either be located up here or inside the guitar. And almost all guitars have a truss rod, especially new production. Make sure it's functioning properly, and make sure we have just the right amount of gradual neck relief like we want for clearance. Beyond that, the next thing on the neck that we check is the fret leveling. You know, make sure there's none that are popped up and not seated well. If so, we seat them. If they need to be leveled and filed, which on good manufacturer guitars, they don't always need that, but if they need it, we do that. You know, we'll level the frets and recrown them so they're smooth, and also dress the fret ends. Sometimes these ends can be real sharp when you're sliding up and down the neck. So those are the things we look for in a good neck setup.
Cool. Finally, number 5, Jake, would be the bridge and saddle, which it's very important that that's set up correctly. Yeah,
it is. So a few things go into that. Like I mentioned before, we make sure that the bridge isn't separating and is firmly attached, obviously. But then we'll check the pins and the pinholes, make sure the ball ends of the strings seat properly. We make sure that the saddle is fashioned properly where it's seated level on the bottom. Sometimes, you know, from the factory they can be cut with a slant, and that's not always best for tone transfer. We'll also adjust the saddle height properly. Sometimes we need to build a whole new saddle because the one the factory sends is just too short to get proper clearance so it doesn't buzz, right? And then on rare circumstances, most of your modern builds are pretty good about this. Sometimes we might have to intonate that saddle a little, which means you know, especially on the B string, kind of cutting
adjust the slot.
Adjust adjust the length of the string at the saddle so it's a little longer so it intonates properly. But that's pretty much it. The saddle and bridge is pretty straightforward as far as what to check.
Cool. Well, that's it, y'all. Hope that was helpful. There's the top 5 things that you need to be aware of whenever you're buying a guitar, either online or in the store. And don't be afraid to call up the retailer. Ask them if they've inspected these things. Educate yourself a bit so that you can be more confident whenever you're buying an instrument. We'd love to earn your business here at Banjo Ben's General Store. If you want to give us a shout at 833-BANJO-BEN. Don't forget, if you thought that this was helpful, subscribe, like, comment, share, do all that good stuff. And if there's something else that you like to investigate whenever you're buying an instrument, why don't you comment below and I'll answer you.